So how does technology and what you're spending on your technology impact your staff? How does it impact your capacity? And how does it impact your overall profitability of your agency, right? Are really, really key things to look at. So when you can start like layering some of these things on top of each other, it creates a really much deeper conversation. Welcome to Business Refocused, a podcast about the people, decisions, and strategies behind building a successful business. Each week, we talk with leaders and operators about what they're learning, what's working, and the challenges that come with growth. I'm Lindsay Sexton, and I'm happy to introduce you to my co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Let's get into it. Hey, Mom, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Lindsay. How's your day going?
It's good. I did want to ask you, though, how is Hudson doing? Because Hudson got a little bit injured.
Yeah, so Hudson, for those of you that don't know, we don't talk about our dogs very much. We talk about my dog very much. We talk about yours a lot since they're puppies. But Hudson's our Aussie Doodle, and he is going to turn 10 this year. I can't believe it. My heart broke when I did the math and figured that out. But he went out the other day, and he's been tripping down the stairs in our house, and we thought it was because we have hardwood and it's just more slippery than what he was used to in our previous house. But he tripped down the stairs going out back, and man, he was limping like nobody's business. And I was pretty confident he had broke his leg or done something severe based on his behavior. And I was very happy to hear that it's just a soft tissue. He has some pain meds, so he is a little loopy and glued to my side. So that is a good thing. So we're happy that Hudson is just fine. And it's hilarious. Our Aussie Doodle is a standard poodle and an Australian Shepherd, and he's all legs. So I'm thinking that dude, is long and lanky, but he did not break a bone, which is great. So I was really happy to hear that. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. No, I was thinking about him this morning as I was making my coffee and my dogs were running around and wondering what he was up to. So good. I'm glad he's resting and maybe he's got a little good drugs running through him.
She said he can't, we have to limit his activity, which is kind of funny for a dog. And she's like, no free running. And I'm like, check. We will definitely not have him free running in the park or anything like that. So I didn't have the heart to tell her that that's not Hudson's style these days. Yeah. So he's just fine.
Well, for this episode, we have no guest. It's just you and I. And we have been doing a lot more benchmarking this year than we ever have done in the past. And some of that stems from just the nature of what we have going on in the early part of the year. But I think part of it also stems from, I think lots of agencies are starting to not only get valuations when it is time to sell, they really are just looking for information on their agency overall. And which is a really good thing, right? Yeah. It means that agencies are starting to look at their agencies like a business and be a little bit more strategic. So through some of this benchmarking that we've been doing and looking at insights, there are a couple that really stick out when you overlap them from one another. And we have a couple really, really great examples of conversations we've been a part of in some group settings recently that I really just want to get into and chat about for the listeners. As part of our benchmarking report, some of the metrics that we look into are, obviously we look at organic growth and profitability, what expenses are really impacting those, what expenses are really impacting your profitability overall, and how much over the benchmark are you? We look at concentration in all different types as part of a book of business. So by policy type, by type of business, by carrier, by client, by producer. We look at the breakdown of owners. And then one of the most important ones, I think, is we look at niche, which is something that is rising in the industry, in my opinion. And then we look at some culture metrics. So we look at commission per employee, revenue per CSR, revenue per producer, staffing versus benchmark, and employee productivity, which to me is one of the most important things that we could be looking at. So just to give you guys, the listeners, an idea of when I do a benchmarking report, what types of things am I looking at? Because we're kind of going to cross these over each other to look at how does one impact the other, and some important findings that we found through that.
Yeah. So I think of a benchmarking report as a health checkup. It's not often without doing a number or placing a value on your agency. It's a great way to get a health checkup. So we basically have created a report that is allowing you to take a snapshot view of your agency. And at the end, we actually give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, et cetera, in these categories, and then look to see how has that moved over time with an agency. So what Lindsay was talking about is we benchmark all of the agents that are in our mastermind groups, and it allows the people in the group to have deeper conversations about their agency and actually have context to those conversations. And one in particular is we always look at organic growth and compare you to agencies of your size. But in a recent conversation, we also compared you to the room you're in. And it's helpful to then say, well, how are you driving double-digit growth in your agency versus mine, et cetera? Well, if you think about it, there's lots of different ways to drive growth. You can grow a sales team and have producers and unvalidated producers, et cetera. And everyone is going through the training process, et cetera, in order to drive the new business goals that you have. If it's really all producer driven and you have, unvalidated producers, you will see high growth, but maybe also low profitability because it's really based on adding more people that may not be paying for themselves quite yet. So that's one way. You might have referral sources where you have account managers catching leads and writing new business and have a growth rate that's very high. But in that model, you might actually have much higher profitability than another agency that's created a different strategy. And then, you might have a niche-based agency that's writing a whole bunch of content around a certain niche that's driving those leads either to a producer or an account manager. And again, based on your structure, your compensation structure, your lead generation, et cetera, that can look very different inside an agency. And having those discussions when the agencies in the room, how much they're spending on their people, how much they're spending on their marketing, how much they're spending, what their growth rate is and what their profitability is, you can start to put together a story of what's driving it and which things impact the performance, not only in a growth standpoint, but profitability and overall value of the agency. So it creates these conversations that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have. And to me, we learn a lot in those discussions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's also a really good learning, because it's like a board of directors on crack, right?
Yeah.
Like typically when a large company has like a large board of directors and you're going through your annual planning phase, they're just looking at their numbers, right? And here we're looking at the industry overall, but you're also looking at 10-ish other agencies, give or take, what their numbers are, and the person sitting right there. You're able to ask them, hey, why are you doing that? Hey, why didn't you do this? Right? Is there a specific reason? Is whatever. And you can just get so much deeper, and you can get so much more insight that way, that it's a really cool dynamic.
Well, the hypothetical is no longer hypothetical. You're sitting next to someone that's executed on a strategy that maybe you've never thought of before. And you can really pull them aside at dinner or breakfast the next morning and say, tell me more. Like, how did you pivot to that strategy, and what does it look like? And what were the pitfalls that I should pay attention to if I'm going to maybe test the waters in that area? One of the cool things with growth is, I didn't say this, but one of the ways is you could also be buying leads. So you could have a really high marketing expense in order to drive growth, or you could not. You could have created those leads yourself through centers of influence or your own content, whatever. But that became a really cool conversation in a room we were in recently where we put everybody's growth rates on the board. And then we said, what percentage of your revenue are you spending in marketing? And how do they compare? So you would think the people with the highest growth rate would also have the highest spend in marketing. And what was true was actually the two highest growth rates in the room had almost no marketing. They were less than 2% of their total revenue was going to marketing. And it created a conversation that you might not have already had. And it's really tough to have with yourself when you have people in the room that are actually executing in a different way. It creates a whole different level of learning in that environment. So that was a really cool thing. Like, just looking at one metric didn't get you there, but when you started to look at multiple things, it really told a different story in the room.
Mhm. Well, and I think there's so many metrics that cross over like that. Like, for example, with this rise in AI products are very expensive right now, especially for um, a small to medium-sized agency. Very, very expensive. This is investment, right, that you are making. So, how does technology and what you're spending on your technology impact your staff? How does it impact your capacity? And how does it impact your overall profitability of your agency, right? Are really, really key things to look at. So when you can start like layering some of these things on top of each other, it creates a much deeper conversation.
And a picture, right? So, I think that's one of the biggest conversations many agency owners are having with themselves. So there's never been a time where there's more options about leveraging automation, technology, AI, et cetera. And obviously, if you're going to make an investment in that area, if you're going to spend more revenue in your technology or percentage of your revenue on technology, you would expect your capacity of your people to also increase, which means your revenue per employee, or the percentage of revenue you spend on your people, to start diminishing. So we there's an exercise we did recently where we looked at, for all the agencies in the room, what is the percentage of revenue you spend on your people? What was the percentage of revenue you spent on technology? And what was your overall profitability and growth rate? So, are you growing? Is it getting you the performance you need? And really, the question was, are you creating more capacity with your technology, or is it really just becoming a bigger expense item and negatively impacting your profitability? There's lots of different factors to this conversation. So I'm not trying to minimize it, but once you put those metrics on the board, you can start digging down deeper into this conversation. So, number one, I think the backbone upon which you're building your tech stack matters. And so I literally was just on a phone call with one of our CFO clients, and they were contemplating, do we have the right backbone? Because they use one of the most expensive AMS systems in the industry, and they're asking themselves, should we make a move there? Because we think it could actually help our profitability and potentially help us be able to utilize different technology that maybe their system doesn't integrate with, or doesn't allow the ease of use in that situation. So, number one, really you have to think about what's your backbone and are there limitations by the technology that you've chosen to start building upon. Number two, if you're going to look at your people, if your compensation structure for your people is out of whack, it doesn't matter what technology you give, you might always be a higher percentage of your revenue going to your people. For instance, if your commission structure for your producers is atypical, let's say you pay a base plus you pay a high new percentage and you also pay a renewal, you're always going to have a bigger expense than someone who only pays new and renewal and has a threshold implemented for their producers. So that right there, you have to even the playing field with compensation. And we obviously had a huge conversation around comp structure because you could start to see in this picture, well, wait a minute, you have the most tech spend, you also have the most employee spend, but you are growing, you're just not profitable as everybody else in the room. And one caveat, this room had some super high performers in it. So it's almost like a nitpicking conversation, but for them, they want to get better. And so, for this particular conversation, there was a couple that gained the insight, like our comp structure is what's keeping us. It's not the tech. We actually have great capacity, but we're shooting ourselves in the foot with our comp structure. And that's something we're going to have to resolve. We're going to have to figure that out. So it's kind of cool how layering some of these things together, it just makes the insights much clearer and, or at least highlights the questions you should be asking yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Well, I didn't want this to be a super long episode. I wanted it to kind of be high level, tactical. What are some things that we're seeing and are comparing to look at the overall health of an agency? If benchmarking or being part of a mastermind is something you are interested in, we are happy to help. Benchmarking is something we do on almost a daily basis around here now. And we have mastermind groups that we are helping recruit for, whether that is you're part of a network and you want to build a mastermind group as part of your network, whether it's you're looking to be part of a group of agencies that are similar to you, whether that's looking to grow aggressively, looking to buy other agencies, looking to perpetuate internally. We have groups starting in all of those areas, and we would be happy to help. So reach out to us. You can email me, Lindsay, LINDSAY, @agency-focus.com, and we would love to get you set up. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.